Good morning. Happy Friday. This is episode 20 of Disruptors Live. I can't believe, Andy, that we've already hit 20 episodes. How amazing.
So many.
And what a way to celebrate with our amazing guest in an amazing hat, Monique Elwell. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Merry soon-to-be Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Pagan Fest. Whatever you celebrate.
Right. We're coming up on all the holidays. My personal favorite is like the winter solstice. I like to celebrate that one and be all witchy, you know? And Monique, I want to introduce you to our audience for those that don't know you. She is the president, COO, and co founder of Storyvine Inc. Her career started in the mid 90s, which is hard to believe. We were just talking about how good you look moments before the dot-com boom when she worked on Wall Street covering internet companies. Since then, she's run multiple tech companies and is fascinated by how digital technology is changing the cultural landscape, whole industries, and how we interact as humans. This is going to be a fun conversation today. I already know. So, for starters, give us some background on Storyvine and tell us a little bit more about it for people who haven't heard of Storyvine yet.
Sure. So we are a 10-plus-year-old company. Not really a startup anymore. Most of our companies are really large Fortune 500 blue chip clients, but we go all the way down to small nonprofits and service a lot of mostly companies in the healthcare space, education, politics. I mean, we cross the gamut, but we're really looking for, we really help organizations with their video needs, but very specifically to sort of doing a guided storytelling process amongst either their partners, their clients, their constituents, whoever they would like to give a voice to. But it's done in a very guided, controlled, and for their pharmaceutical clients, regulated and compliant fashion. So it's kind of one half user-generated content, one half professional content sort of mixed together, but without the expense of professional generated content.
Totally. And Andy and I understand all of that too, because sometimes we're producing professional videos for people and not everyone needs that. I think, especially now that, a lot of the videos that Andy and I even shoot for social media are just on his phone. You don't need an entire video crew for everything. So, how were you kind of ahead of all this? Because I feel like that has more taken off recently versus 10 years ago.
Yeah. So so the difference between what we do than say just like picking up your phone and so forth is it's still very controlled. Like our clients have to have a certain brand. They have to prevent people from saying certain things. And in the case of our most regulated industry, which is the pharmaceutical industry, like they'll go to jail if they are, using people's privacy inappropriately. They're very, very locked down. So our system allows to get the authenticity of the video out, but still within this sort of narrative guide rails so you can tell a good story. I completely just forgot your question.
No, I was just asking, it feels like starting this 10 years ago was like very new, probably not as, but now it's like, wow, obviously you guys were way ahead of the game.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of typical for me and my career. I've always kind of been just a few minutes ahead of everybody else. And my business partner is Kyle Shannon. So he actually is extremely innovative. We like to call him the hand wavy guy, and I'm the person that keeps the trains running on time.
Good combo.
Yeah, I know. And it is actually a really good combo, but it does cause conflict because he's always thinking 10 years in advance, sort of to your point. Like he came up with this concept about 25 years ago because he ran one of the first interactive agencies called agency.com. And but he did it in a manual sense. And then suddenly he figured out how to automate it. And like the price drops at that point. And you can really democratize Storyvine when you get to a much lower price point. But the problem is like 25 years ago, nobody was willing to buy it. 10 years ago, it was still sort of the cutting edge. Although IBM was our first client, and they were really kind of willing to jump in with 2 feet because they had tried it and they couldn't do it themselves. But now it's funny because Kyle and I, he will often come to me with an idea and he'll like walk into the office and the hands are waving. He's like, ooh, I have this idea, And what we've determined is there was always a conflict when that would happen because I would hear, I'm going to change the whole business model and I'm worried about payroll. So now he comes in and he goes, instead of this, ooh, I have an idea, he's like, I have a fantasy, or this is a 10-year out concept. And then I listen with the concept of this, his idea sort of being applied 10 years from now. And what can we do now, you know, in terms of vetting that idea that will serve us 10 years from now. But yeah, it's fun.
So for your average client, I'm gathering that you guys collect, aggregate, as you mentioned, user-generated content, professionally shot content, and then you are harvesting that into usable, publishable content. Is that going into like employee training or webinars or social media websites? Where does it end up getting used?
Yes. So it is a broad spectrum. So our and it depends on the industry. So like I mentioned, pharmaceutical clients is like our largest category. They will do patient stories, doctor, or they call them HCP, healthcare provider interviews. And what we're doing a lot in the pharmaceutical space now is sales videos. So when COVID happened, several pharmaceuticals came to us and said, you know, our salespeople can't get into the doctor's offices anymore. Like they're not allowed in, and we still want to have a relationship with these doctors. Can we create video with your system? And we're like, absolutely, that's what it was designed for. So we have Novartis, for example, their whole oncology division has filmed, I think, thousands upon thousands of videos of simply their pharmaceutical reps going, you know, hi, my name is Jane, and you know, Dr. Bob, I would really love to meet you to talk about this latest research that came out. So that's another use case. In our educational space, there'll be a lot of training, a lot of, you know, parents, kids, and teachers and principals talking about their particular school. We do a lot of advocacy work in the sort of the nonprofit space. So they're advocating for a particular, you know, bill in education or gosh, healthcare, or really just about anything. But yeah, we cross the gamut. Our specialty is replicability. So if you have a story that you want to tell over a bunch of different people, then that's where we really specialize.
Ooh. And what do you feel like are the most important components of telling a good story? Because obviously anyone could do a sales pitch, but if you don't have the story behind it, you know, no one's really as interested. So I'm curious from your perspective.
Yeah. So I will say this with a caveat. I'm actually the business person who runs the company. Kyle is the hand wavy guy, and he worries about, you know, a lot of the creative elements. But he has taught me that it is always about, you know, the beginning, middle, and end, that story arc. And one of the early on learnings is we were in LA. This is probably 10 years ago, meeting with I want to say it was the head of story, but I can't remember which big Hollywood studio it was. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the questions, because we have a guided system where we ask you specific questions and you're to answer the questions on video. And we were talking about, as a random example, you know, real estate broker, you know, well, the question was, what's, you know, your, what's your best customer? Something like that. Like, describe your best customer. Yeah. And this gentleman said, no. That'll give a boring answer. The question that you need to ask is, tell us a story where you really helped someone. And that answer effectively answers the same thing, but it provides so much more passion. So a lot of what we do is, you know, apply our 10 years of know-how around crafting the right question that can be answered in user-generated content to come up with a really wonderful story.
Oh, right. I mean, it completely makes sense to me as a former journalist. Yeah. You know, you're always trying to get the soundbite that you want without saying, hey, can you say it this way, X, Y, Z. So, you know, I love that you guys are doing that, because it is, you know, obviously emotion behind things is always more compelling than just saying, hi, I'm a realtor. Yeah. Come do stuff with me. And I wanted to go back to, you were talking about your partnership with Kyle, right? Yeah. So something that we have been thinking about with business matchmaking a lot is creating these partnerships. It's so important to have different skill sets and to complement each other. You know, how did you and Kyle initially meet? How did you work out like what parts of the business you wanted to focus on? And, you know, tell us about maybe some of the successes you've had by coming from different places.
Yeah. I have a lot to share on this topic, Abby.
Oh, I'm so glad because we got time. So hit us with the info.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's 3 questions in there. Let's see if I can remember them all. So the first one is, how did we meet? So I actually knew of Kyle. So my background was on Wall Street. I was in New York City, and we were sort of squarely in Silicon Alley. And Kyle was sort of tangential to me. So we have about 50 different people that we all know, and some of them very well, that we both know, but we had never met. So I knew of him. He was decently famous because he was the founder of agency.com, which had exploded in terms of success. So he was sort of the advertising world, but technically not at a technology startup. Whereas I was covering internet stocks. So like I was mingling, with like the TK Kugel of Yahoo, and, it was more on the search engines and a lot of the companies that were in California. Years and years and years later, I met him at a gentleman's retreat called Jerry Mikulski. And Jerry Mikulski, I like to say, is probably the best connected person in Silicon Valley that no one's ever heard of. Just a brilliant industry analyst, like very low key in terms of his, press coverage. He's just a very humble guy. And we hit it off. And over that time, he became kind of an advisor to me. And then when he started thinking about bringing Storyvine to light, I turned into his advisor, and we moved forward from there. But I will tell you, there was a lot of conflict for the first 3 years with us because we do not think in the same way. We don't approach the same. There's a lot of diversity in the way that we approach problems and how we communicate. And that caused a lot of conflict. And over the years, what we discovered is it was one of actually our investors that said, he's like, oh, I know, he's the wizard and you're the warrior. Ooh. And those were Jungian archetypes. And we actually created a whole presentation around that, where we realized in business, there are wizard and warrior archetypes. So if you think about, like I said, to sum it up, he's the hand wavy guy, he's the wizard, and I'm the warrior. I keep the trains running on time. Well, if you think about a business without a warrior, you just have a wizard. Think the Fire Festival.
Oh,
brilliant. Everyone wanted to get involved. There was absolutely no execution. And if you think about an organization that has a warrior but no wizard, think about Theresa May trying to sell in Brexit. Technically correct, boring as you know what. So, Kyle, everyone loves Kyle. He's charismatic, he's lovely, he's funny, he makes you feel good, he's empathetic. But everybody respects me, right? I make sure that payroll gets paid on time, that we adhere to our contracts, everything's locked down. I worry about compliance with my clients. I am the Eye of Sauron, making sure that everything is going correctly. So it's a different dynamic, and we've really grown in our relationship. And now I can't imagine starting up another company without someone else because of all the, frankly, therapy we've been through in communicating.
That's awesome. I mean, I love that because it kind of reminds me a bit of Andy and I. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andy.
Well, except you're the organized one and the salesy one. I'm the creative one and the quiet one.
Yeah, right. Andy's the one who's like, I have an amazing idea. And then I'm like, okay, how are we going to do it? And then I'm also like, okay, I'll go talk to the people about it. Yeah. But Andy's the behind the scenes, literally doing 90% of the work and making sure everything actually works with all of our systems. So it's like, hey, everything has a balance. It's been a big thing we've been talking to business owners about as we've been starting up business matchmaking, figuring out what skill sets do you have, what deficiencies do you have, and then how can we match you up with someone who can help you with those? Because there's no way we can all be good at everything. I mean, I think sometimes business owners are expected to be that way. And Monique, I'm wondering if ever you felt that pressure, like, okay, I have to do every single thing in a business, finance, operations, sales, all of it.
Oh, absolutely. And what's, nice, it's nice I have Kyle now, but in previous companies, I would be staying up late night after night, bringing in the sales, doing this, signing the contracts, make sure all the systems are working. And then I'm done and I'm so emotionally exhausted, I literally have nothing left in the tank. And then my employees expect me to make this brilliant speech about how wonderful the company is and rah, rah, rah. That's just not me, right? And so now I have Kyle for that. So, so it's nice that I can, I can take a step back and I don't have to do everything.
I'm interested at kind of the granular level. One of the use cases that you put out there was the pharmaceutical salespeople.
Mhm.
What do you think about people using video as a pitching mechanism? I met a guy from, some seminar or coaching thing, and the next day he texted me a video of himself and said, "Hi Andy, this is Jason. It was really great meeting you." I think he might have even turned it around for a minute and like showed me something on his computer screen,
Yeah.
but I had never had a private customized video before.
Yeah.
Abby and I have been trying some stuff with pre-made, micro pitch decks or
Yep.
interactive PDFs where I can text this to you right now and then you can click and see our services. And everybody wants to figure out how to utilize
Sure.
mobile devices or something that you can do live in person with a QR code or whatever. But I had never seen anybody else use video for a custom sales mechanism. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So, okay, I have a lot of thoughts.
Please.
First of all, our system works really, really well for relationship style sales. So non-commoditized stuff, right? So if I'm just selling you a widget, maybe it'll work, but that's not what we sort of argued is our sweet spot. The sales in the pharmaceutical world is heavily consultative, and it's also heavily restricted in terms of what they can say, because they cannot promise that that drug can do anything other than what the research is showing, and that research is deep and detailed. So that's one point. And that's where my expertise in video in terms of sales lies, is that sort of heavily consultative situation where it does work really, really well. Now, the other thing is, in the immortal words of Townsend Wardlaw, one of my early consultants who helped us set up our sales process, is he said, don't sell until they're ready to be sold to. Right. So it sounds like this guy met you and he immediately went into pitch mode and said, ooh, let me tell you about me. Like, here's my product, here's my product, here's my product. We don't do that. We develop a relationship first, because again, we also have a very consultative type of product. So we just get to know them. Like, maybe they need us, maybe we're a good fit. Like, we're not a good fit for a lot of companies. So the first couple rounds we'll do discovery, which is actually not us talking to them. So our videos that we initially send out might just be more like, hey, have a happy holiday. Great to meet you. Thanks very much. Or you ask me a question, let me answer it for you here on video. In fact, the person who's really good at that is our senior advisor, who is Kevin Clark, now with Content Evolution, but he used to run IBM's global brand. And he has been a huge fan of our software for sales. And he's come up with a lot of the concepts that we use today. And what he would do is he would have a consulting meeting with, say, Sony, and he would walk out of their offices and he would film himself in front of their headquarters and saying, hey, Masaki-san, you asked me a question and I had a chance to think about it, and here's the answer. So we do a lot of the pitching and stuff like that. We have videos for that, but we don't really sort of send it out as, hey, look at my pitch.
So what would you think? I know that one of the things they're saying in this decade, at least, is no matter where you are in an organization, you need to be comfortable on video because everything's digital. What would you say? You mentioned you work with a lot of big enterprise and blue chip size companies.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to those small and medium people that are intimidated by the production time and money investment behind video, how to use it at a more grassroots level and the best ways to do the storytelling?
Yeah. And, it's interesting because we find there's an age variable here. So, like a lot of my staff who's in their 20s, they're like, yeah, let's get on video. Woo, I'm on Instagram, whatever. They feel perfectly comfortable, and so forth. And the older generation, sort of frankly, even younger than I am, and older, who aren't as comfortable in technology, they were brought up to think video's permanent. Like, I have to be perfectly coiffed and everything's perfect and I'm scripted, because that's what professional video was, right? And only then am I going to move forward. So what we tell our clients when we're faced with this is that they just start filming. Who cares if you don't look good? It doesn't matter. It's a practice run. Just keep doing it. Our video, all of our contracts are unlimited. So we're just keep filming over and over and over. And the advice is, even without Storyvine, just try it. Film yourself. See what looks good. Get yourself comfortable being filmed. And then once you're comfortable, then you can do it for the real one.
Right. And I feel like there's probably going to be an element, I'm sure, of coaching that someone on your team has to do, of what to wear, voice intonation, anything like that. Is there something like that that you do with people if they're like, I don't even know where to start?
So we don't do the fine granulation that you just
Yeah.
mentioned. That's really professional video.
Hmm.
Our coaching is around sort of 4 or 5 things, and we make it funny because remember these are not trained actors. These are not professional.
Right.
We don't want them to be professionally trained because if they were, then they're not believable. Which is why you have a lot of those ads. No, seriously, these are real actors. We trust us. Hair flip
Right.
now, right? So, for example, one of the things that we do is say exactly what I'm doing. Don't film with your back to a beige wall because then you look like you're in a prison cell, or don't read while you're, like you can see this, don't read a script or something like that because now you look like you're an Al Qaeda witness or, Al Qaeda.
A prisoner of war or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have like 3 or 4 of these little fun, quippy things that we get them to remember. And we have videos, we have training content. And then if our larger clients need additional training content, like some compliance training, we will incorporate that into our training materials as well.
Got it. And I'm curious too, because I'm sure it hasn't all been easy breezy, just building Storyvine to the moon. What have been some of the challenges, maybe in the past couple of years that you guys have had to come across and overcome?
Oh, how long do you have, Abby?
Let's see, 9 minutes.
Okay. The first and the big one, which I think is applicable to everyone, is the emotional roller coaster that it takes to be an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. I now personally have digestive issues because I spent 18 months where literally every 2 weeks I didn't know how I was going to make payroll. And the weight of...
Oh no, Monique. And is she frozen for you too?
Yep. The weight.
We're really on
finances.
A cliffhanger. Oh my God.
I know.
Monique, we lost you for a second, but
I
you're back
lost you.
now. Hey, all good. This is live streaming. I was going to
The
say
weight
this is
of the
live
pressure
TV.
of delivering payroll.
Yeah. Did you hear me through that whole thing?
No, we cut off where you said the pressure you're trying to make payroll. You weren't sure if you were going to make it. That's where we left off.
So, 18 months of that. And it really, I didn't want to have the weight of, well, I mean, I did, but I knew that I had the weight of these people and their families and their ability to make rent. And I take that very seriously. And it was difficult. And we're long since past that point, which is fantastic. But still, there's goals that I'm supposed to meet, and the pressure is enormous, and then the highs are high and fantastic. So you have to be able to emotionally deal with that roller coaster.
Right. And what are some of the ways, if you don't mind sharing, like, how do you deal with that roller coaster of when it's the high highs and low lows? Like, are you like, hey, I go for a walk, or I meditate, or, go get my favorite ice cream? I don't know.
Yeah, no. So still trying to figure that out. Definitely. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I don't even drink caffeine. I have really gone down the health route. I exercise every day. For me, I'm not good at meditating, sitting down. I'm like too hyper for that and too wiggly. So it's, more about skiing and working out and taking a walk. I bicycle to work a lot, although not today. So that stuff really helps. I have a good group of friends that I can depend on. I read a lot of self-help books, and I credit you for one of your podcasts. I'm now reading Lara Torrent's book on the power of love. That's it. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Okay, we'll have to do like a little mini book club when you're done with that.
Yes. There's lots and lots of books that I'm going through.
What's one that you would recommend for business owners?
In terms of like their emotional state?
Yeah, maybe let's do one for what has helped you through some of the harder times of business.
So, gosh, for business owners specifically,
I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, no, I don't. So I approach a lot of my stuff from relationships. So one of the best books that I've ever read, and which really goes, I'm a geek, so I like to go into the brain science, is The Body Keeps the Score. And it was actually recommended by a fellow entrepreneur. In fact, what I'll say is what's interesting, because I work in a world, let's face it, where it's mostly white men. And they're all usually not all of them, but the people that I work with, the ones that are very, very successful, there's always some sort of trauma in their life. Like, you don't get to be so successful where you're staying up the middle of the night and really pushing yourself for years on end, unless there's some parent or caregiver or someone you hear that voice constantly saying, like, you need to do better. You need to do better. Like, your self-worth really is in the toilet. So maybe that is the answer. The Body Keeps the Score is about trauma and the brain science behind the trauma. And frankly, it was the best book to have after that book, because The Body Keeps the Score talks all about, your brain and how it works. And then The Power of Love is a really nice follow-on book, because then it talks how to implement all of the things that he talks about that your brain needs. So there you go.
I like it. Okay, we got some good recommendations. If you are off the next 2 weeks for the holidays, now you got some reading material. And Andy, I feel like, can we announce what your book is in the works? Would this be a good time?
Sure. I wrote a book. It's been a long time in the making. It took me so long, I've actually written half of the next one with things that were omitted from this one. But it's coming out in January, and I'm really excited. I just got the final proof copy last night. So we're going to be publishing. It's all about early stage business and product development and how to analyze markets and come up with disruptive ideas.
Very cool.
After years of podcasting and having tons of guests that had books and observing how it goes, there's no better way to hand somebody something that is a piece of you. And it was kind of emotional last night when I ripped open the envelope and there was the copy. And I mean, it's got my face on the back. So it was, I'm going to read it this weekend, and I'm pretty excited because parts of it I haven't read in a couple months.
Oh, that's so cool. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
It's quite a vulnerable moment for you as well. Like, you want people to like it, and you don't know that because it's a book. It doesn't give you feedback.
It's gone so many directions. It started out being a really cathartic thing with kind of memoir-y, talking about mistakes I've made as an entrepreneur, but then it went kind of really academic, like this is going to work for marketing students. And then it came back to like, I want entrepreneurs to enjoy this. And so I think I thought I knew better than everyone else and I could write a book in a month or two. And I've written enough words for probably 4 books, just figuring out what this was gonna narrow down to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an enormous amount of work that goes into writing a book. So I commend, hats off, sir.
Appreciate it.
I love it. You literally wore the hat just for this moment, right?
There you go.
And Andy, I just wanted to make sure we give you a shout out because I know you won't brag about yourself. So
I know I wasn't ready for that.
And we do like to end this show with things we're celebrating. So Andy, we got what you're celebrating. Monique, what are you celebrating at the end of the year going into 2023?
Yeah, so I had a big parenting win that happened after several years. So my son is like most kids in tech, right? So he's dyslexic, ADHD, and has executive functions, which we figured he would because, everyone in my family and his dad's family are. And he's also a very loving child. So relationships are really important to him. And he went to another school. And my mother got extraordinarily sick, and his whole world revolved around his grandmother. They had a great relationship, and this really affected him at the school. And the teachers, they've got like 20 something kids in the classroom, and there's a bunch of kids that are disruptive. And he immediately got labeled the bad kid. And here he would come back from kindergarten, literally saying, "Mommy, I want to kill myself. My teachers hate me." And it was just heartbreaking. So we just didn't know what to do. We tried to work with the school and no solution was working. COVID happened. So then that threw a whole wrench in what we were trying to accomplish. And finally, in the end, when COVID opened back up, we switched him to a new school, this fantastic outdoor school that specializes in kids with neuroatypical, that are typically, they call them twice exceptional nowadays. So he, as of 2 weeks ago, was promoted by a grade. So after being there for a year, he is now in a wonderful place. He loves himself. He's proud of his work. He acknowledges that he's super smart and works really hard. And he's now doing math 3 grades in advance. And he's been promoted to the next grade level as well. So he just feels so good about himself. And it's just like, it just makes me want to cry, because it's
It's
been
amazing.
years of trying to get him into the right spot and find a teacher that just loves him and sees him for all his positives and negatives.
Congrats.
Yeah, that is amazing. I feel like what a way to end the year and
Yeah.
then start something new. And thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable with our audience too. I'm sure there's someone out there who is maybe going through a similar thing or can resonate with it. And, I think it's always helpful to put it out there if you're open to it. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
And what about any final parting words of wisdom for our business owners that are listening on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and then also tell us where everyone can contact you too?
Sure. Yeah, I think business owners hopefully will be able to take the next 2 weeks and just focus on themselves and relax and just get, all that stress out, and have time with family and friends and a little joy in their lives. In terms of where to reach me, I am no longer on Facebook, but the best place is, I know it's shocking. Yeah, I'm always ahead of the curve, Abby.
Right? I'm proud of you. I mean, who uses Facebook really anymore? We stream on there, but hey.
Just wait what she's going to say. I feel like she's going to say TikTok or something.
No, I'm not going to say TikTok,
LinkedIn.
but LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Is the best place. Monique Elwell. That's the best place to find me, because I do keep a work persona on social media. But yeah, I enjoy TikTok, but I went on it once and I was like, wow, I just lost an hour of my life and I don't know where that went. So I try to use it sparingly.
I have to get up early.
I have that moment every day when I'm like, oh my God, I just went down a giant rabbit hole, but now I have 100 new recipes I can cook. So
There you
go. And all the links, by the way, if you guys are watching, are below us in the comments, wherever you're watching. So you can actually just click and go right to Monique's LinkedIn and connect with her.
Right.
So go and do that. You will not be disappointed. And Monique, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us this Friday. Enjoy your vacation. And if you're watching, hopefully you get to enjoy a vacation too. Bye, everybody.